Hey, welcome to Bible 365. I'm your host, Kathy Carter, and I am bringing you First Peter 3. And we're just talking about how the set apart behave towards each other, towards those in the church. If you're interested, stick with me, and I'll see you guys in just a minute. Hey, welcome to Bible 365. I am your host, Kathy Carter, and this channel is here to kind of merge Bible living with Bible literacy. So, we are going to be using the New Testament this year in order to understand what it's like to live as a follower of Christ. I have a link below in the description that I have a download that will bring you to a chronological Bible reading of the New Testament. So, what I want you to do is read every day and join me and hopefully some friends as we talk about what it means to live as a kingdom builder. Let's get started. Hey, welcome back to Bible 365. I am bringing you First Peter 3 today. And just a quick background of what's happening is that it is written by Peter. Peter was one of the 12 apostles, and he's writing it, he says, to the pilgrims that are kind of like scattered throughout these whole bunch of different areas around Israel. So what we kind of understand is that they are probably Jews, maybe also Gentiles, and they are people of the church that follow Christ. And so he's sending them out. My guess is through all of these things is that there's persecution going on because these people are scattered, they've left, and the way in which he's talking, and he's like essentially like no matter what happens to you, you have to stand up and do the things to follow Christ. So yesterday he was doing a lot of the same things that Paul did. And what I find really interesting is the call after the church is quote unquote being built is the call is to behave in a way, not to follow the law, which is like what you're going to hear a lot of Christians and a ton of non-Christians say, well, why don't you follow the law? Why don't you not eat shrimp or lobster, or why don't you stone people? Um, that's not the call. That's actually not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be living in a way that honors God. And a lot of this during this time is really about what it looks like to suffer and to suffer for Christ because Christ has suffered for you. And the reason that that is happening is because that's happening in that area, right? So he's saying there's going to be suffering for you because people are going to come after you because you say you're a Christian. That's not necessarily true in the United States. And I say this a lot in my videos because we're not physically persecuted because of our faith. We might be emotionally persecuted. We might have people come and trying to pull us away from that faith. We might be having people come and mock us for the faith, but we're not being physically persecuted. We're not losing our jobs. We're not being taken out of our homes. We're not having our families threatened, right? Like none of those things are happening. However, that's here. That's not true everywhere. So while these exact things might not be true for us, they are true to millions of people in other countries. And so we don't want to negate it. We don't want to throw it away. We don't want to suffer for suffering's sake. Like, well, I'm living a really good life. Does that mean like that I should make myself poor and live on the streets in order to suffer like Christ suffered? No, he is always saying, wherever you are, and I say, hey, Paul, Peter, John, right? Whoever the author is at the time, he's always saying, no matter where you are, you should be glorifying the Lord in your words and in your behavior. And so some people here, like we're going to see in in this sentence coming up, some people here might be persecuted in some ways in their own homes, right? It might not be like this countrywide thing, but it might be in their own homes because they behave a certain way and their spouse or their children or their parents or whoever might not like it, but we still need to act and behave a certain way. So for those of us who are under the law, by under the law I mean under legislation, we live in a country or a place or a city or whatever where people are over top of us, the likelihood of them being Christian is not that high. The likelihood of them being Christian and actually following the laws of the Lord, following being super Christ-like in my mind, are actually even significantly lower. And so we're supposed to follow them anyway. It doesn't say only follow Christian leaders, right? It says follow your leaders, be obedient to your leaders. And now he's saying in verse 3, in chapter 3, he's saying in verse 1, wives, likewise, so like all the other things that I've said to you, be submissive to your own husbands, This does not mean women be submissive to men. It does not say that. It does not mean that. So even if it said, whatever, it doesn't mean that. We're not even trying to go, well, I know it doesn't actually say that, but it really does mean that women should be submissive to men. That's not what it says. It says, wives, be submissive to your own husbands. And I'm making a big point out of it because wives live with their husbands. It only makes sense, right? At least I hope so. Wives live with their husbands. And so in their home, they should be living in such a way that the entire family sees that they're Christ-like, right? Like sees their Christ-like behavior. Oh, how did the Lord create the world? He created the world where there was men, women, and then they were to create children, right? They were to create family. God, Jesus, and the church. This is the way that homes are to be lived in the eyes of Christ, in the eyes of the Lord. It's not necessarily true for everybody, definitely true for faithful people, for Christians. And so it says, wives, be submissive to your husbands. It doesn't mean you don't have a voice. So don't hear what I'm not saying. What I'm saying is honor him, your husband, as the head of your house. Respect him as the head of your house. Whatever that might look like might be slightly different in everybody's home, right? You might go, well, the head of the house pays the bills. There's not necessarily a rule for that. The head of the house makes all the travel arrangements. That's not really right. Like, so you need to work out the meaning of those things, right? And understand what that means in order to be submissive in that way, right? In order to be the good helpmeet that wives are supposed to be. Again, don't hear me saying that they're less than. That even if some husbands don't obey the word, without a word, they may be won by the conduct of their wives. So you don't have to say anything. You have to behave in a way that glorifies the Lord, submissive to your husband, that can win him towards the Lord. You don't have to say, are we going to church on Sunday? Are we going to church on Sunday? I can't believe you're not going to church. You're not going to church, so the kids aren't going to church. This is not necessarily a way to honor your husband, right? To be submissive in your house. And this isn't necessarily conduct that will bring him to the Lord. So you need to figure out what that would look like. And I don't mean by being manipulative. I mean by loving on your husband and genuinely submitting to your husband with the respect that God requires of us. So then it says, when they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear, do not let your adornment be merely outward. So don't look pretty all the time, which is something that we want to do. Let's get real. Almost all of us, not all, there's always an anomaly, but almost all of us want to be attractive, want to look pretty to whoever, yourself, your friends, the opposite sex, whatever it might be. Don't just worry about what's on the outside. What is on the inside, what you adorn yourself on the inside matters. It says, let it be the hidden person of the heart with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. Don't hear what I'm not saying. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be talking, right? And we hear these words like be silent in church. Women shouldn't teach. Have a quiet spirit. A quiet spirit is not someone that never talks. It's someone that's not wildly expressing themselves all the time, right? That doesn't need their opinion to be the biggest opinion. The hardest thing, me personally, not the hardest, that would be ridiculous, but one of the harder things that I have had to learn is in my small groups to remain silent. It is one of the harder things for me, but I have grown because I've actually been able to hear other people. And then I can just talk on this all I want because nobody argues back with me. But I want to be able to hear in a group other people. And when I was so busy teaching, telling them all the things that they were supposed to know, I neglected to listen and to hear what they actually understood. And the truth is they could have walked away and been like, oh, she said this one sentence that was really good. Or do you even remember what she said? Or they just checked off on the box that they showed up and they sat back and they were just able to sit and listen to me. It takes away from the entire group working as a unit. And so I had to get a more quiet and gentle spirit in order to love on people and allow them to sort of grow in their faith in understanding and comprehension and the way in which that they live their lives, right? So this is more of what a quiet and gentle spirit is, because it doesn't say quiet and gentle voice, quiet and gentle spirit. So it says, because in this manner, in former times, the holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands. And he's going back to like Sarah and Rebecca. I don't think he's going back to Leah. He doesn't mention her. Leah or Rachel, since they kind of fight with each other all the time. But Sarah, for sure, like an example of Sarah was like a really hard example of Sarah was when Abraham gave her up to Abimelech, not once, but twice. So Abimelech is probably like a title, right? Like king, something like that. And, or like Caesar, whatever, right? Like you take the title, you take the name. And two times, Abraham gave Sarah up because she was beautiful and people came and took her as the wife of Abimelech. And the Lord protected her. She went. He said to her, tell everybody you're my sister. And I'm afraid because I'm afraid someone's going to do something to me. So tell everyone that you're my sister. And she did. She followed him as the submissive wife, and God protected her. Time and time again, God protected her. When she messed up and made him sleep with Hagar, God protected her still because he said she was going to be part of the promise. So he was consistently, even Hagar, God protected Hagar. So this is, God does these things for us. We don't always need to, not always, let me take that back. We don't need to do this for ourselves. When we want and seek protection, we ask for it from the Lord. And, make smart decisions, obviously. Don't go out in the middle of the night in a bad neighborhood. I'm not talking about that. But God is going to protect us from the things he chooses to protect us from, right? Like when someone is out to get us and to harm us, God will protect us from those things when we are in the spirit with him. Husbands, likewise, dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife. So he's asking for something different from them, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together in the grace of life, that your prayers won't be hindered. So guys, do this, because if this doesn't happen, your prayers are going to be hindered, right? So you honor your wife. Honor means to respect. So please don't think when we say weaker vessel, right? When Peter says weaker vessel here, he does not mean you are less than. This is really, really important. We got to get real about the differences between men and women. And the reality is we are a weaker vessel. You can call us porcelain. You can call us glass versus metal. You can call, right? I don't care what fancy schmancy words we all choose to use, because a lot of times we're like, oh, look at this beautiful piece of porcelain. See, it's so fragile, but it's so beautiful and it's so amazing. And the other thing needs to protect that. You're not like this dull piece of iron. None of that matters. The reality is we are weaker, not in mind, but in body. And they are supposed to be protecting us. They are supposed to be honoring us, because the only ultimately thing that can protect us from a bad man is a good man. The Lord, obviously, but on this earth, right? What can protect us from a bad man is a good man. And that's what we need. And it doesn't make us lame or horrible or unimportant or anything that is less than, right? It makes us female and women. And that is a beautiful, extraordinary thing. And we are submissive to our husbands, giving him glory and honor. And they are protective of us, giving us honor as well. And it said, we are heirs together in the grace of life. So there is a unity to us, that we are all heirs. It's not like they're an heir and we get to latch on, right? They get to make all the choosing and we just get to go along for the ride. We're heirs together. We are made for each other. That's the way God created us. And then he says, finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tenderhearted, be courteous, not returning evil for evil, or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, give a blessing. No matter what comes from your brother, bless these people. He said, for the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous. God is watching you. He sees what you do. He knows what's in your heart, right? He sees it. He recognizes it. So when you do good, it's not always going to be seen. It's not always going to be noticed. It's not always going to be recognized, but the Lord always sees it. And you may or may not get a blessing from it, right? Like it might not be tit for tat, like, whoa, she was so nice today. And so she got a reward at the end of the day. That's not always going to be the case. But he knows, he's looking at the righteous. And when the end comes and he judges, right? And not judges whether life or death, because for those of us that believe and follow, we will be with him in life. But there's judgment up there as well. And so what does that look like? I don't know. But I know that he sees all that we do. He says, and who is he who will harm you if you become followers of what is good? But even if you should suffer. So he says, who could harm you if you are for righteousness, right? Like who could harm you? Like as a matter, like thinking to yourself, you would never get hurt. But then he says, even if someone does, which means the reality is it's there. But ultimately, you are with the Lord. Ultimately, you cannot be taken from the Lord. The only harm that you can suffer is here on the earth. And I don't say that easily because harm here on earth is awful. Like it sucks. I don't even want my feelings to be hurt. Like I always try and be real. I don't want anyone to say names about me. I don't want anyone to fight up against me. I don't want anyone to push too hard and say that I'm not doing a good job about something. Like I don't like any of those things, let alone like genuine harm. Harm might come on this earth, but if you are with the Lord, you are with the Lord for eternity. He protects you, right? From all things eternally, and will be with him for life. He says, do not be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and always be ready to give a defense to anyone. So if they come against you and they say anything against the Lord, you are ready right there. That does not mean, because it says to set apart God, right? That doesn't mean being the world's best apologist. I've mentioned it before, but I like to mention it over and over again. It doesn't mean knowing the right things to say. Well, if you're all ever on a plane and somebody asks you, why are you going to heaven? Well, I'm going to heaven because I'm a good person. No, that's the wrong answer. I'm going to heaven because Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Like, really, if you don't understand the concept of any of that inside your hearts, whatever you say is completely pointless. Total waste of time, waste of breath, and waste of energy. The reality is being ready is knowing who God is. So if someone says, your God hates this, your God said these things, your God doesn't love this way, you're right. We should know and understand that's an assault on us, right? They're assaulting our God. They're assaulting us. They're saying something bad about us because of the God that we follow. If you believe that your God is this and you follow that, you are that person. But the reality is they don't know who our God is. So we need to be ready to let them know who our God is. No, you say God hates this. God only hates evil. And I can list the evil that God hates. And I can tell you why he thinks it's evil, because he lets us know, right? So we can share these things with people who want to harm us. And then he said, for it is better, if it is the will of God, to suffer for doing good than doing evil. And the important thing that I kind of wanted to point about that is it's better to suffer for doing good than doing evil. But the reality is it's for the will of God, right? It is better for if you're doing this for the will of God. So if you suffer for doing good, right, it's for the will of God. You won't always necessarily suffer. So if it is the will of God to suffer, then it is better for that if you're doing good. Don't turn away from it, right? Stick with the word. Stick with the Lord. He said, because Christ also suffered. You suffer, Christ suffered. He said he suffered for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, made alive by the Spirit, by whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison. I think this is a little bit confusing for me. I don't know if this means, I'm thinking this could mean one of two. For me, this could be one of two things. It might be something completely different. but he preached to the spirits in prison, right? And so that could be the people who have turned away from the Lord, right? They could be the spirits that are in prison. It could be, I'm going to throw out another one. It could be like the angels that fell. They might be the spirits in prison. Demons, maybe. They might be the spirits in prison. It could be the nation of Israel that were waiting for Jesus to come. They could have been, wait, I don't necessarily know, but we know that Jesus was preaching to them. And he said, who formerly were disobedient, right? So these were the disobedient, when once the divine long suffering waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8, were saved. Now, that was different, right? He saved them then. He said, now baptism is the thing that shows that you are saved, right? Baptism, you are reborn through fire. You've been reborn. He said, not the removal of the filth of flesh, which is circumcision, but the answer of a good conscience towards God. This is much more of an internal spiritual ascent. Should we technically be baptized? I think, yeah. I think that like there really should be no doubt that once the Lord has saved you, once you've tasted and seen that the Lord is good, that you should absolutely go and get baptized so people know that that is true. And so it's like a renewal and rebirth for you. But here it's a very spiritual baptism, right? In the way in which you get the Holy Spirit, right? Because you're baptized by fire. And then he says, through the resurrection of Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God, angels and authorities and powers having been made subject to him. So they're all made subject to Jesus. That's where we're ending today. I know Peter is like so much stuff. If you found it to be a blessing, like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.